So the TSX is naming the 2025 TSX30, showcasing 30 top-performing companies on the TSX over the past 3 years. And we're talking about dividend-adjusted returns, and some pretty big numbers here. The average 3-year share price appreciation north of 400%. The list, as you might imagine, reflects shifts in sectors such as technology, mining, and industrials. We're joined by Rob Peterman, Chief Commercial Officer at the TSX. Thanks very much for joining us. So I'm looking at the TSX ranking here. Celestica, hardly surprising, up 1,600%. Lundin Gold up almost 800%. Hammond Power Solutions up more than 700%. What themes have emerged for you with the TSX 30 this year?
Yeah, so beyond the great performance, we do try to look at the list and look at the themes underlying it. So one theme that really jumped out at everyone was gold. So investors are seeking stability. So you have 14 gold companies on the TSX 30, and as investors seek stability during this time of trade wars and things like that, gold has been a popular solution. The other second theme that we look at and moving more to opportunities and growth, AI is driving a lot of themes around the market, and you can look at things, on one hand, things like Cameco, that is a miner of uranium, and the interest in nuclear to power the AI revolution. But you also have names on the list like Celestica, who are building infrastructure and grids to accommodate AI applications in the market. And then the third theme that jumped out at us and that we want to talk about is investment in infrastructure. So as governments are investing in infrastructure, you have companies like Bird Construction, which is a graduate of TSXV, all the way to large companies like AtkinsRéalis, that is a global engineering firm.
So yeah, you may have touched on this, but there's 17 miners in the list of winners this year, and 15 of them focus on gold, and that sure has been a theme. Talk to us a bit about this infrastructure, because AtkinsRéalis, Bird Construction, Hammond Power, and TerraVest all showing up as top performers.
Right, and other names like Bombardier, right, that well-known Canadian companies. So this theme of governments investing in infrastructure, companies investing in infrastructure and making changes, and we're seeing government policy also right now driving in that direction as well in Canada.
What should we look out for down the road? Are there emerging or nascent themes, do you think?
Well, I think, we try to look at the TSX 30 and say what themes are going to continue, right? So these themes of looking for stability in gold and commodities, which commodities will be next in terms of investors looking to them, and then also with the infrastructure, is that theme going to continue? We're looking at the policies from the Canadian government right now, helping companies to invest in their entry into global markets. So we think those are important themes for investors to think about.
Just to be devil's advocate here, because the TSX, we do see problems here. Bryce Tingle of the University of Calgary's law faculty wrote an op-ed for the Globe and Mail earlier this year in May. And he said, the TSX, long the crown jewel of our financial system, has shrunk almost by half in terms of the number of operating companies it supports. You're not getting IPOs, you're not getting new listings of significant companies. So what are you doing wrong?
So I think that's an interesting question. So when you look at the market, so we can talk about how it's changing and adapting. So while there are less corporate issuers on the Toronto Stock Exchange, we're at an all-time record for corporate market capitalization. So the issuers we have are bigger and stronger. We'd love to see more IPOs coming to the market, but if we go back to the TSX 30 and look at that list, one of the numbers we talk about is those companies created $350 billion of market capitalization. So the companies that we have are growing and they're strong, The other thing I would point you to is that 14 of these companies are graduates of the TSX Venture Exchange. So a lot of the companies that are coming onto TSX, about 20 a year, are graduates of the Venture Exchange. They're growing up as public companies in Canada, and they're finding success. So we would talk more about a shift in the markets away from smaller market cap companies to larger market cap companies, but want people to understand we're at an all-time record. Like, it's a record corporate market capitalization on TSX, record corporate market capitalization on TSXV. And we spend a lot of time working with private companies and the investment banks on the pipeline, and we're hopeful about what might happen over the next few months. But overall, the market is moving forward. The companies are graduating from the Venture Exchange, assuming the mantle of global Canadian champions.
I'm going to be devil's advocate with you. A stock market is crucial to a country's financial system. All we see are tech companies being bought off our market. We don't see them coming on. Now, are you failing in your duty there? It doesn't sound like you plan radical changes.
Well, I think we have addressed a number of things on the Venture Exchange to make it easier for companies to go public. And we do see companies going public on the Venture Exchange. There's a gap right now in terms of valuation between private and public tech companies, and that is a real thing. And I think the market will adjust that and sort it out. But if we go back to the TSX30 list, Celestica is the #1 company on the list. Shopify is on the list, which is now the biggest company in Canada once again. Celestica is the 3rd largest tech company in Canada. So we do have Canadian tech champions right now. The tech sector ultimately is far bigger now than it was 5 years ago or 10 years ago on Toronto Stock Exchange. So we do hope some of the private companies will move to the public markets, and we spend a lot of time talking to them about it. But you have new generation companies like VitalHub on the list, right? And VitalHub's another example of a company graduated from the Venture Exchange. They've done a number of acquisitions, a number of financings. The public markets are an amazing vehicle, right, to raise capital and do acquisitions and provide liquidity to your employees.
Rob, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Rob Peterman, Chief Commercial Officer at the TSX.